NBA.
Yes.
Right? You know how I feel. Just get me to the playoffs. I don't care anymore. But one of the important things we need to know, and we may not be able to find out to the playoffs, is can Darius Garland get things done when it matters in crunch time? Darius Garland had a great game the other day against Phoenix. But when it mattered down the stretch, he failed.
Yeah.
Mike, you have some numbers on him late in games, right? And they're not pretty.
Yeah, so somebody asked if I could kind of sort and figure out why Darius has struggled late in games. So I did the best I could, and I kind of dug into some of the numbers, went back and watched some tape, and before we get into any of this, let's preface with something. Darius isn't the reason they're losing these games. Like, this is not blaming everything on Darius. This is just showing.
He's part of the reason they're losing
but
games.
We did this on the Ultimate Cavs show yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, he scored 30 points last night. How are you blaming him for the loss? We're not blaming Darius for the loss.
Right.
We're just saying he needs to play better when it matters most, and these numbers are going to back it up. So since February 28th, that was the game they played Chicago, double overtime. Donovan Mitchell did play in that game. That was the last game he played, but
this is not a huge sample size that you've given us.
8 games. But this is since he's been the primary closer. This is DG as the lone closer, because in that Chicago game on February 28th, that's when Donovan was under the weather. He had just played the game against Dallas. It was the last game he played, so Darius was the guy they relied on to close the game. So it's 8 games. Not a huge sample size, but I'm going to give you the quarter-by-quarter numbers. And you can pull up the tweet so people can see and follow along. So in 8 games since then, I know it's small for you guys if you're watching if I don't read you these numbers. In the first quarter, he's averaging 6.3 points per game, shooting 43% from the floor, 44% from 3, is averaging 2.5 assists per first quarter, and just shy of 1 turnover. In the second quarter, he gets red hot, 7 points per quarter, 53% from the floor, 65% from 3, 2 assists, and less than half a turnover. Great first half numbers. You can live with that every day of the week. In the third quarter, still pretty good. 5.6 points per quarter, 47% from the floor, 53% from 3, 2.1 assists, and just over half a turnover. But in the fourth quarter, this is where it kind of falls off. Now, granted, a lot of players' numbers drop off in the fourth quarter.
I was about to say that because defense picks up in the fourth
quarter. Not
quarter.
Completely out of question, but these dips are extreme even for...
They are.
These are extreme dips. He drops from the first 3 quarters being around 45 to 50% and 50% from 3 to 27%, averaging fewer than 3 points per quarter, 29% from 3, more turnovers than assists, which that trend does not qualify. And in clutch moments, which are the last 5 minutes of a game of a 5-point game. So overtime, last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, 5-point game. This is where it's been extremely difficult for DG. He's shooting 21% from the floor. He's 4 for 13 in these moments since February 28th.
Again, that's a really small sample size.
But it's still 8 games as a primary closer.
Right, but it's 14 shots total.
Well, there's just not a ton of clutch minutes. This is only in that stretch when it's a 5-point game. It's actually the most field goal attempts of any player since February 28th in the clutch time moments of any player in the league.
Any player in the league?
Well, they've played in 3 overtime periods. They've come down the stretch against Phoenix. So small sample size, but actually big sample size for this specific metric. In fourth quarters in total since then, he's played 74 minutes. His 9 turnovers lead the NBA. He's got 27 total points. 7 assists to 9 turnovers. He's a negative assist turnover ratio.
It's awful. So
the numbers don't look good.
How do you explain it?
So 2 things. To me, it proves most importantly that they need Donovan Mitchell back, which we all knew from the get-go. That is not some sort of giant culmination.
Yeah.
But Darius, when counted on, and considering this year he's just been a little finicky on his 2-point shots, I do think the lack of strength he has from when he lost 12 pounds with the jaw injury has prohibited his ability to take contact in the paint. Gee, I hear you laughing.
Yeah. Do we know if he's gained any weight back?
It's so hard to put back on weight in the season.
That's true.
I haven't asked. No one's asked how much he weighs, but...
Well, we talked about this earlier when G talked about picking up basketball. It's how you
it's so hard,
cardio.
So hard to put on weight. So I think that does prohibit him from getting to the paint. But 2, and most importantly, I just think he's a bit hesitant on some of the plays that he has made in the past that he isn't making now. And I go back to the Minnesota game. He got blocked by Naz Reid on that last second regulation shot, right? Mm-hmm. In overtime, blows by him twice with ease. Now, why in the first situation are you settling for a sidestep 3 with 4 seconds on the shot clock? Or 4 seconds on the game clock?
Right.
When You know you can get by him. You did it twice in overtime. Teams are doubling him. They're sending traps off the high pick and roll. They're not getting a ton of movement from the other guys in the court. To me, this screams one thing. If you need Darius to be your closer, he's probably not the guy going to get the job done more frequently than not. As a secondary guy, his fourth quarter numbers prior when he plays with Donovan Mitchell are pretty damn good. So it kind of
even this year.
Even this year.
Okay.
Kind of solidified in my mind. Jason said he doesn't think he's in the final five yesterday. I think as a secondary guy who can create 4-on-3 after they blitz Donovan, more than capable of. But as the lead guy, my confidence 2 weeks ago was, he could do it. I'm not so sure that's still the case.
I like the analysis. I just think that Darius Garland, I don't think he has an elite trait. That's not a knock against him. Like I think he's really good at pretty much everything, right? But when it comes to, you talked about that game in Minnesota, he's not an elite finisher like Kyrie Irving. That's why Kyrie Irving is so good. Kyrie Irving can finish left, right, foul, hit him on the hand. He's not getting the call. He's still finishing that. He's not really if you're a point guard, he's not an elite. Off the pick and roll, I'm shooting the ball. He can hit threes at a nice clip, but he's not Steph. He doesn't have the size like Luka, who's 6'7", that can be a maestro. He's not an elite passer that's gonna give you 10, 12 assists like Halliburton. And he doesn't even have even when you look at it, Devin Booker is not a point guard, but Devin Booker is solid. Devin Booker get to his spot right mid-range. I'm knocking that down every single time.
They're different players. I mean, Booker and Garland is apples and oranges.
Right, but here's the thing. In this league, you gotta have as a player, if you're gonna be a star, you gotta have an elite trait. I don't know if he's an elite finisher. I don't think so. I think he's a really good finisher. I don't think he's an elite knockdown shooter. Can he shoot well? Yeah, sure. Is he an elite facilitator? No, he can get you 5-6 assists. Yeah. So what happens in crunch time is when they blitzing you and they bringing in these pressures and they bringing traps, you got to be able to do something. Straight line dribble to the rack, I'm finishing. That's why it annoys me sometimes a little bit.
The only thing I thought you say that may be a little unfair, you said, well, you don't trust him in a big spot. Right now it's fair. That doesn't mean he couldn't be down the line.
Oh, I still think he's in that close to 5.
And the one thing I'll say, G brings up a good point. I've talked about this. Part of the reason I was ready to move on from Baker Mayfield, I'm bringing him back up, but is that when I looked at Baker, I didn't see anything he was elite at.
Yeah.
And I think to be an elite quarterback or just an elite NBA player, most elite NBA players have multiple things
they
they're
got 2 or 3
at.
things.
You got to have at least one, right? Dennis Rodman was an elite rebounder.
And size can be one of those, right?
Whatever.
Ben Simmons is still in the league because of what? He's 6'10".
But ultimately, after seeing Baker for a while, I was like, he's good at a bunch of things, but he's not elite at anything. And you're right. Darius is good at a bunch of stuff. And I think comparatively, he's a better basketball player than Baker is a football player. I'm not trying to make that exact comparison. But ultimately, to be a regular all-star, you got to be great at something, and he's not.
One thing that, as you watch, because Donovan's not playing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He could come back in the next game or two. Just one thing to keep an eye on from JV Bickerstaff and the Cavs as they close, and this is Donovan and Darius reliant. How can you kind of fix this? I'm not sure there's one fix, but I go back and I look at the end of the Phoenix game and the Minnesota game. They were going 3 on the baseline, high pick and roll with Darius, everyone's standing still.
I hate it.
Darius averages, he has one of the highest dribbles per touch rate in the league, one of the highest seconds per touch. He holds the ball a lot, which is what he's being asked to do in these situations, so I'm not saying that's an issue with his. What helps with Donovan is if you have Donovan on the court, he could be the creator. When they get out of his hands, all right, now Darius goes attacks the secondary defense. Well, without Donovan, it's Darius up top. Let's get some movement, JB. Let's have some guys coming off screens instead of just running pick and roll and having Darius have to create against 2 defenders with 3 guys standing still and him having to kind of pick and choose where I can and can't go based on where the defense is. I'm not letting JB off the hook for this either, because there are too many possessions where even if Darius doesn't get something going, He just has one guy in the corner, one guy in this corner, and one guy standing on the wing, and there's really no space for him to even operate.
Nothing.
So I don't want to put it all on Darius. Like he needs to play better in the crunch time. Don't get me wrong. He's got to make some more shots, be a little better, a little smarter with his decisions. But I want to see them get into offense earlier. I don't want to see him standing at half court with 6 seconds on the shot clock as a pick coming up. And I really want to see some motion from the other 3 guys on the court who aren't involved in some sort of pick and roll to get things moving to at least open up the defense.
That's my problem with JB. When you see games like that, I used to say games like that when LeBron was here the first time. You used to see
But you can do that with LeBron.
But
Darius ain't LeBron, and neither's Donovan.
But we still used to lose with LeBron doing that. Like,
it's because the defense is set and it knows what's coming and it can lock in.
And he's 6'8", 260 or something.
So why are they doing it?
Because JB's not running nothing.
But why? What do you think the reason is?
JB's not. He set me up like this because I think JB Bickerstaff is a below average to bad head coach. When you are watching these other teams and they come out of timeouts or they need something or they need to call a timeout to stop something, they're coming with their best plays. I need to get KD. KD was unstoppable the other day. Him and Booker, nobody else. We're going to run our action. KD, boom. Open shot, we're knocking it down, back up to 12, right? When we should be cutting the lead. Darius Garland played that well. 7 and 10 from three-point line, 30 points. He had some assists. You know what that means? That means that they was okay with him getting that. Go ahead, Darius, get that. Well, but as long as Isaac Okoro don't get you 15, or Jared don't know, Allen don't have 25, we okay with you doing all that dribbling up the top because we gonna get a turnover or 2 in crunch time, and that means the rest of your guys are just standing around.
I hate that type of basketball. I love ball movement. It's so much more fun to watch.
Yeah, I would much prefer, and I think they'd be better suited if they weren't playing Darius, create 3 guys stand around and run some sort of set to get somebody coming off some weak side action. Just so even if it is a pick and roll and you're just disguising what's happening on the weak side, the defense isn't just set like, there's Darius running a pick and roll. Okay, we're going to follow his eyes and follow the play.
But why is it different? Why is it different when we saw, okay, you got 1 point guard, 1 big, 1 ball handler, while all of a sudden it's Darius Garland when he got the rock, you can't run what you was running before. You still got shooters. What happened to that movement? What happened to
I mean,
the
like when
spacing?
they were 18 and 2?
When they was 18
well,
and 2.
there's spacing, but if no one moves, spacing doesn't really help you.
So how
the difference is Donovan was playing like a top 5 player in the league, and Darius is not that.
Okay. And here's the thing.
That was the best stretch of Donovan's career.
And the elite factor that Donovan Mitchell has is you can't stop him from getting to the basket.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
And he's physical, and you can't knock him off the point.
And real quick, you talk about spacing in this situation. I know we got super chats.
Yeah.
Donovan drives, gets in the paint. Guys have to help. Yeah. That opens up the shooters.
Yeah.
Darius does not have the finishing ability of Donovan, and just frankly isn't as dynamic once he gets to that spot. So they're not helping off as far, which cuts off passing angles, and the shooters aren't as open.
All right, let's